Story time!
Story time! Story time!
Story time! Story time! And then
Itch! Hello, folks. My name is Timothy Vilgiotti. You are listening to Two Lies and One Truth. I am here in the UCCS radio studio. Christopher Fox is out in Kansas. I was in California last week. We're just total globetrotters of the American West, at least. And I'm excited to have this episode for you. This is Hope. Hope for a New Tomorrow. Hope in the Face of Death. Hope in the Face of Death is really what most of the show ended up being about. We've got a story by me, Timothy Vilgiotti, about reincarnation. A story by C.J. Hackett, my good friend from A Bad Night for a Hero, about heroin overdose. And Christopher Fox has written a story called Why I Believe in Tomorrow. I hope that you enjoy listening to this. For the music this week, we have my album, Little Canyons, that was released in 2015. You can go download that at timmyvilgiotti.bandcamp.com if you are so inclined. Other than that, our show airs every Thursday at 4 p.m. Tell your friends to tell their friends. Tell your friends of friends to tell their friends of friends. And please sit back and enjoy. Maybe I've heard wrong, it's not unlikely I suppose, 'cause it's the same with many, it's so lucky that we know. Life is hard, but the pavement's harder, the water's warm, but the asphalt's hard. Hello, my name is Timothy Vilgiotti. I will be reading my story of the time that I died. As I prepared to die, I became convinced of the inevitability of my own reincarnation. However distant that was from my religious upbringing, my rejuvenation in some kind of new form seemed increasingly imminent, such that as my consciousness waned, I latched onto reincarnation as perhaps the sole source of hope. Death harkened back to some untold memory of birth. Each dying heartbeat pulsed in time with the ecstatic symphony of life around every corner. My memory shuddered by me. This act which I had so long dreaded now felt familiar, basic, almost exciting. I fantasized eagerly about what I would be brought back as. Perhaps the next president of the United States, I imagined. I figured I'd lived a decent enough life to have earned that. I'd grow up in a world with no memory of the existences I'd lived before, and the same traits that made me an artist in this life would make me into a great leader for some far-off future time. I would avoid war, I'd create jobs, or maybe I wouldn't even be the president of the United States. Maybe I'd be reborn in some other country and I'd lead them. If not president, I at least hoped I didn't get reincarnated as a homeless person or something like that. I could content myself with being a scientist or a doctor. My future incarnation would remember this time that I lay dying on this hospital bed, and it would take compassion on the sick and the dying. Or perhaps it would search for a cure. I dreamed and dreamed of these possibilities. I wanted to make sure that I remembered as a reborn infant the trajectory towards science, towards helping my fellow men. Did all people as they die have these thoughts? I really couldn't say. I imagine dying is a very particular experience. I feared on one level that by pondering these things I might set myself off on an eerie course. In the next life, I might be driven mad by the memory of the past, by the imminence of death and the tenuous fabric of existence that I'd beheld. By remaining so insistently conscious, maybe I was destroying myself. Soon, I'd be but a driveling lunatic in an insane asylum. That fear kept me awake for a while. In a brief moment of lucidity brought on by my anxious rumination, I remember catching a glimpse of a commercial on the television and a man sitting next to my bed looking at me with a grim expression. There was a beer commercial on. I shuddered to think that the last thing I remembered, that I would ever remember, would be a beer commercial. I looked at all of the drunken, idiotic faces on the TV, and suddenly I couldn't stand the thought of reincarnation. Not as a human, at least. Humanity, I thought to myself, was almost a lost cause. All of the pain and suffering that we inflict upon ourselves. The artificial prisons that we seem to create. I convulsed and could tell immediately that I was finally dying. Nurses rushed in as the room faded to black, and I looked upwards. I resolved at that instant that I would come back as a bird. An eagle that would soar proudly above the clouds and build nests in the trees, distant from humanity. I could be the king of the forest. People down below would stop to see me and point with awe. Pigeons would glare at me with envy. Field mice would see me with scorn and terror. The actual moment of dying felt sudden. In my mind's eye, I felt only the slightest shift into some other world, a world of indescribable beauty, yet grotesque horror. I felt my bindings to the life I had before tear away, and I moved closer and closer to a brilliant white light. I felt a sense of a body coming to form. Was I already being reincarnated? Surrounded in light, I tried to move, only to feel myself tightly constricted. I couldn't. I couldn't move, I couldn't speak. What was happening? Was this all there was? Just this light and stupor at the bottom of some kind of cerebral cave? I hoped not. I felt very lonely there. Let down, even. Disappointed in the universe. I remained still, surrounded only by that radiant white with no discernible sense of feeling for what seemed like forever. No spiritual practice, no religion could have prepared me in the life I once knew for what lied there in death. I was alone, only with my own thoughts, in an unfeeling void. To my relief, the white began to recede, and I was plunged into a new world. I'd never imagined anything like it. It was neither heaven nor hell. It was somewhere in what looked like a huge factory, and I was moving along a conveyor belt. So I thought, this is what happens when you die. They must just recycle you at the soul factory, or something like that. I felt distinctly that I had only just been born. I knew without a doubt that soon my memory of the past would be far behind me. I slid off the conveyor belt and into a box, after which point I was surrounded only by darkness. Nothing happened for the longest time except that I felt vaguely like I was on a ship. The mysteries of what awaited me on the other side in some new body fascinated me. My soul could be transplanted into any new life, a flower maybe, or even a tree. I fantasized about it in the ship. After what seemed like an eternity of dreaming there in the boat, I was taken in my box to another maze of conveyor belts and rushed about through some kind of warehouse. The box I was in was torn open, and I was placed in another one. Only this time did I catch a full glimpse of what I looked like. A long, black extension cord dangled behind me. What seemed to be my feet were in fact clamps to affix me to some kind of surface. I had been reincarnated as a desk lamp. I wanted to cry as I realized what I was, and that to make matters worse, I would likely live a small lifetime here as a lamp. What crime had I committed in the past to justify this? Already I could feel aspects of my soul growing mechanical. I remembered once that I had a desk lamp that I accidentally ran over in the driveway. Was this some kind of punishment for that? Were all desk lamps sentient like this? I was mad at whatever higher power had chosen to reincarnate me as a lamp. How sick was the universe to condemn me to this? I felt indignant, offended, but also ashamed. Was getting cancer not enough? Had I really done something so terrible that this was what I deserved? I was lost in a hell of insignificance and misery, and what hurt even more was the total lack of explanation. Maybe if God or Allah or Shiva or the flying spaghetti monster had shown up to explain to me why I was a desk lamp in my next life, I would have been a little bit more calm. But it felt like the spiritual equivalent of a clerical error. Like my reincarnation paperwork had been mixed up, and now instead of being a lamprey, I was just a lamp. I arrived at my destination on a rainy day and got somewhat damp even inside of my cardboard box. A nice young woman accepted the box from the delivery driver and signed for it before heading inside, shouting, "Oh my God, it's finally here!" "Your lamp?" asked her husband. Yeah, it's here." She rapidly unboxed me and took me out, unwrapping the extension cord. I felt awkward. I wasn't sure how I should behave. But then again, it was a lamp. Even in spite of the existential awkwardness of my predicament, I felt a peaceful warmth and joy in the eyes of the woman who purchased me. She carried me to her office triumphantly and clipped me onto the desk, plugging me in. A wave of electricity shot through me and I lit up. My consciousness began to wane already. Soon I realized I'd move on. My memories were fading. But the heart of the matter, just then and there, occurred to me that she really just needed a lamp. She hadn't needed an eagle, or a tree, or a president, or a scientist, not at that moment. She had needed a lamp. Immediately after setting me up there, she opened her laptop and started working, smiling occasionally up at me. Hello, my name is Timmy, and I will be reading a mixtape by C.J. Hackett. I made you a mixtape. I know it's silly, especially considering our history. I just wanted to give you something pleasant to remind you that you're loved, that you're never alone in this world. But you're not with us anymore, and ultimately, you were alone. So I'm sitting here with this list of songs, each track associated with memories of you from beginning to end. I never carried through, but I can hear the reels spinning in my head. Side A, track 1, Tamarin, Crane Kiss. For some reason, I always imagined you singing this to me. It's a perfect expression of my excitement leading up to our first time meeting. We'd been social media phantoms for years, sending likes among mutual friends and silently approving each other. You were moving back to Colorado, and that was the catalyst that finally broke down the wall between us. Suddenly we were sending a constant flow of messages, talking about everything and anything as the day of your return group code. Suddenly we were sending a constant flow of messages, talking about anything and everything as the day of your return came closer. With the cruel gift of foresight, I can say maybe things would have been better if you'd never come back. At the time, I just hoped you'd like me. Track 2, Alves, Party Police. The first time I saw you was in the parking lot of the Flux Capacitor. It was your first night back, and you were eager to see what was new in the music scene. I was nervous as hell getting out of my car, afraid that our internet conversations would somehow be forgotten and I'd be a stranger all over again. You were sitting on a low wall when I saw you. You scraped your knee, stumbling as you ran to greet me with open arms. That introduction said so much about you. I was stiff and awkward even as I drank, but I found the guts to invite you to my show the next night. You accepted before giving me a quick hug and leaving my car. You didn't tell me I had overshot your mom's house by an entire block. I was too busy hoping you'd think I was cool. Track 3, Depreciation Guild, White Moth. The following night, I performed next to last in a very long list of acts. I didn't think you'd stick around to see me, but you did. You were a fan of my music, even before we'd met, and that shocked me. Already I had built you up as this amazing person. I couldn't comprehend that you thought I was interesting and fun, but soon we were dancing and drinking and my worries vanished. It was a long night of music and laughter, but it was somehow perfect, as chaotic as it was. I hoped it was a memorable night for you, too. Track 4, Were, Sandy. I was lucky enough to spend a third night in a row with you. This time I was playing a gig in Denver, and by a stroke of what felt like pure luck, you'd agreed to come with me. Finally. Here's the chance to talk without music blaring or friends breathing down our necks. We talked about our lives, my battles with depression and suicide, your battles with drug addiction. There is a growing intimacy between us in the jokes we'd tell, the way we casually touched, and the whispers we shared sitting side by side. After the show, we had what felt like our first date at a retro-style diner. 2 straws, 1 milkshake, and a lot of delicious grub. You took a photo of me preparing to devour a helpless burger. It was one of those nights I never wanted to end. I hoped the feeling was mutual. Track 5, Johnny Foreigner, Sometimes in the Bullring. Not long after that, we shared our first kiss and began sleeping together. We fell into this surreal routine, wandering the city, visiting friends, cooking elaborate meals, or just hanging out after I picked you up from work. My lips were never far from yours. Most nights we'd fall asleep happily, but one gloomy morning after waking, you cried in my arms that you didn't deserve me. That day I learned of the men who'd abused you. I felt rage and the need to protect you, a feeling I'm certain leads some men to murder in the name of love. I hoped it would never come to that. Side B, Track 6, Drake, Child's Play. We flipped the tape, and here's where things began to fall apart. You were struggling with addiction again, but playing it off. I grew paranoid and anxious seeing the way you squirmed and scratched at your arms during our date, or the way you'd vanish into my bathroom only to come out a completely different person. I'd never seen drug addiction firsthand, so it was hard telling what was real and what was imagined. I felt like I had no right to voice my concerns since we were casually dating, but my silence enabled your choices, and soon tensions grew between us. Trivial arguments became part of our routine. I never knew how bad your addiction was until you let it slip. When confronted, you deflected, using my jealousy and unrequited love for you against me. I started to avoid you, hoping you'd get clean again. Track 7, Unknown Mortal Orchestra, Necessary Evil. You found a new boy to spend your nights with. He was infamous for drug abuse, so my mind would race when you wandered off or you'd cancel plans with me. Jealousy played its part too. A month went by with little contact before you surprised me with a cake on my birthday. It was like nothing had changed. You told me to make a wish as I blew out the candles. I told you what I wanted. It was a bad idea, but that didn't stop us. Immediately afterwards, I had a moment of sobriety and told you it couldn't happen again. Not while you were still doing drugs. You lashed out at me for me sleeping with you while harboring these pent-up thoughts, and I deserved it. Even then, I could see something wasn't quite right with you. I really hoped I was making the right decision to turn away from you. Track 8, Los Campesinos, Tiptoe Through the True Bits. You got a new boyfriend, and I got all the updates from our mutual friends and social media. Occasionally I'd see you at shows. You'd smile meagerly before embracing me in a hug. Then you'd disappear again. I never said a word. You kept a positive spin on things, so I was happy to look away. The two of you were going to meetings now, and you insisted he was helping you get clean. Honestly, I don't know if it was ever true. I hoped it was. Track 9, King Cruel, Baby Blue. Months went by, and we started talking again. I was in a new relationship, but for your birthday, I saved you a ticket to my next show. I'm ashamed to say I fantasized about stealing a kiss. 2 days prior to the event, you showed up at a town meeting to save the flux. To my surprise, you sat beside me and our fingers casually latched together, just like old times. When it was over, you gave me a peck on the cheek. I wanted more, but settled with a short message telling you I'd been thinking about you. You seemed happy to hear it. I hope you were. The next day, you overdosed. You drove to your mother's house in a panic. You died in her living room, waiting for her to reach you. Track 10, The Drums, How It Ended. I saw you one last time. laid to rest in a casket, surrounded by some of your most cherished belongings. I kissed your forehead, wishing you could just open your eyes again. I want to blame so many people, the ones who guided you down this path. I want to blame the heroin as if it was some living creature that took your life. I know it was your choices that led to this, but even so, I still can't blame you. There's so much left to say, but there's no one to hear it. Just a list of songs I'll rewind and replay until I can overcome this heartache. I could go on with cryptic and morbid sentiments, but it's all just to say, I love you, and I hope you know that.
Death is a curious inevitability. Even though it's certain, I've probably spent my entire life running from it. Running from tomorrow. Running from myself. And without ever really trying. I ran so far that I forgot what's really important in life. Like, family, friends, love. Without really knowing, I ran so far that I didn't even recognize the reflection in the mirror anymore. Death is a curious reminder. I read someone's obituary not too long ago, and it started up a lot of memories. Mostly, though, it reminded me of one of the strangest and scariest events in my life. My own brush with death. Now, death doesn't always have to be a finality. That's a hard death. There are also soft deaths that occur when we forget what our favorite things in life are. When we lose sight of hope, curious things occur. My favorite thing in the world is to believe in tomorrow. Now, not necessarily the concept of time, but not necessarily not. I just feel like tomorrow is going to be a day full of new opportunity. Opportunity that I can do my best at. Opportunity to grow as a person. Opportunity to breathe and listen to my heartbeat. The coolest thing about tomorrow, though, is the opportunity to believe in the next tomorrow. Tomorrow. Every day compounding, adding a stroke to a painting that a final image is never made. It's just this complex, continuously growing picture. It's the picture of life created every moment, and I love it. I love it because it's beautiful and worth more to me than anything in the world. I love that I can continue to add to this image. And it's beautiful that you all can as well. And we all can because we exist here and are sharing this time. I attribute my ability personally to because I believe in tomorrow. Now, for a long period of my life, I didn't think tomorrow could get any better. I was busy running from myself, and I ended up attempting suicide. It was slow and painful. I swallowed over 100 over-the-counter equate with acetaminophen pills and other items that would help me not throw up. Within 12 hours of swallowing those items, I was in the hospital, on the edge of death. It's what I wanted. But sometimes what we want isn't what we need. What I needed in that moment was to be in that hospital because it was the only chance I had to keep living. I attempted suicide, but as soon as I swallowed everything, I regretted the action completely. I wished it never happened, but I've learned that it's not possible to wish life away. I've never been able to wish for things that I didn't do or wish away a present situation with something better. I've learned that wishing gets you nowhere because life never stops. I have learned, though, that when I do something, sometimes people are there to see, and sometimes they can give me a better account of what I did than I can. Some people are pretty qualified to do so. I got told I probably wasn't going to make it. Same person, next sentence, told me that moving me to ICU wouldn't do anything. My liver was failing, and nothing short of a transplant would help me out in ICU. If I started to crash, then I would get moved, but no transplant would be on the way. You see, the powers that be don't give items in high demand to individuals that don't want to live. Those things go to people who want to live. That's fair. When the second doctor repeated what the first had said, I knew it was probably true. I was going to die there in the hospital. It was my own fault, and so I accepted it. That was fair, too. I was already fading in and out of consciousness anyway. Throwing up blood was getting old. Having blood taken every few hours was getting old, and having family come in one after the other was getting old because saying goodbyes was getting old. When I thought that I couldn't take it anymore, laying there in that hospital bed in 2011, I had a near-death experience. I wasn't in the hospital anymore. I was somewhere else that didn't hurt. It wasn't calm, it just didn't hurt. Now, because of that OA show, this might sound cliche, but it wasn't the first time that I had had a near-death experience. I got choked out in the locker room in 2007, and I was told that I laid on the ground not moving for a while. To me, I was in a field, walking around, listening to the most beautifully calming voice. The time in the hospital wasn't like that, though. The near-death experience there was different. There wasn't the singing, there was no field, but the feeling was similar. I was in an ocean. The faces of my family streaming before my perception. I started to understand life a bit more in that moment. Life wasn't some meaningless thing. Life was huge and magical. I saw a seed become a tree, and then expand. I saw the earth spinning around the sun, and then expand. I saw the galaxy, and then expand. I saw more stars than an eye could see. I saw the galaxy. I saw Earth. I wanted it to stop. I saw reactions of people to my death. I saw future events, past events. I saw a choice. Stay where I was or go back. It wasn't going to be easy to go back, but I had a choice. Now, I'm sort of a hopeless romantic, and I've been chasing after this concept of the perfect other for a while. Most of my early poetry is addressed to her, and I've been writing since about 2002. I remember in high school, around 2007, I read a poem to my dad, and all he asked when it was over was, "Who broke your heart?" The answer being, nobody that I've met yet. So this idea of the perfect other has just been this crazy consistency through a very inconsistent life. Every girlfriend has been compared to her, and it's never been fair for them because this perfect stranger that might not exist has always won. When I had the near-death experience in the hospital, I almost stayed wherever I was. I was told that I wouldn't be blamed if I did, but then I felt a sadness from a faceless figure. The faceless figure that has always denoted her through my life. And because of her, this crazy notion that I've carried for years, I chose to go back to my body. When I made the choice, the waves of the ocean came crashing in, and as I went under the water, I was so scared. But then I opened my eyes, and I was back in the hospital, laying on the bed. I breathed air, and with trepidation I closed my eyes. I felt air trickle into my lungs for the first time. I felt my heart beat, the rhythm of my soul. I felt the 1,000 needle marks in my arms from all the blood the hospital had to take. I felt 3 IVs in my arms, and I also felt the 2 spots they messed up putting the IVs in because a dying suicide patient makes pretty good practice. I felt completely alone. But I felt alive. There's no loneliness quite like dying. I have experienced vast expanses of time where I wouldn't talk to anyone. 2 months in one stretch, and over a 6-month period I spoke to maybe 5 people a week, usually on the same day. I know loneliness. However, the loneliness of dying is true. It's true enough to change you. Because no matter how many drugs I've taken or how far I've tried to run, I haven't been able to escape that feeling of death, because I can't unfeel the experience. I can't unhear a silence that echoes endlessly, unsmell the sweetest fragrances ever imagined, unsee the thousands of lifetimes of human advancement that resulted in me, untaste true happiness, or unfeel the void of weightlessness. Since the time that I survived, I haven't been able to stop people from walking on eggshells around me. I can't stop the texts from family that come just to make sure that I'm alive. I absolutely have not been able to stop the constant thoughts of depression and the side effects of depression that are never really options in every difficult moment, and I haven't been able to figure out how to quell the feeling of never being able to open up, because every time I have, people back away. So in every lonely night, it's just been me holding me, rocking myself, telling myself that tomorrow will be better. And through that, I've learned how to believe in myself. Believe in myself in a way that no person can break, no matter what they say. Believe that tomorrow is another day. A day to do anything in the world. A day to create, be happy, love. It's been a few years, and I haven't met her yet, but I believe I will. I've been waiting, believing in every tomorrow that her and I will meet, and whatever tomorrow may bring, you better believe I'll be there. Even if I fail, and I have a lot, at least I tried. I have the opportunity in failure to learn from it and move on. Because you know the coolest thing about tomorrow? There's another one after that. And maybe she's where I'm gonna be, waiting for me too.
11, one moment in heaven, the ecstatic promise rises up like the levin. I wish echoed in through the woods. I wish to be a bird, I wish to be a tree. I wish to crawl upon my knees, or to learn something fantastic like a giraffe begun to macrame in a wax museum incarnate. But I sincerely wish above anything sweet on earth as far as this life that I see, to be married and live by a lake where the children learn to ice skate, ride on boats when the pond's not frozen. We read our Bibles by the rocks and cherish our little talks. And someday, much older, wiser, and great, I slowly just before I wake, speak to travel, learning to skate, and the birds sing a pleasant refrain, something wordless that sticks on your brain. And that story you just heard by Christopher Fox was actually performed at the Story Project back in March. If you'd like to submit any of your work to us, just shoot us an email or visit our website, twoliesandonetruth.com. You can also message us on Facebook. Chances are, if we know you, we'll also try to find you, hunt you down, tie you up, and force you to write a story for our radio show. We're available on lots of different podcasting localities. If you'd like to share any of the episodes with us afterwards, we're on SoundCloud, iTunes. We try to be all over. Thank you very much, folks. I'm going to play you out with one of my own songs. Before I do that, I wanted to also say a big, big thank you to CJ Hackett for sharing his story with us. I invite you to also check out his music at abadnightforahero.bandcamp.com. Anyway, thank you very much, folks. This song that I'm going to play now is called New Grace.
This place was where we stood some years ago today. Maybe not our feet, but I would like to stay. You slip on your winter coat, fire begs you to remain. Snow fell just like ashes. You said you couldn't stay. Said you couldn't stay. Old friend, you see my soldier now. Old shadows, they're still cast from here and there.